Hi everyone, I'm Julie Martinez Hayes, and I will be demoing some Ubuntu related labs from Chapter 8 of NOS 110. So first I'm going to start with the install lab, and let's switch to the screen here. A comment real quick about the ISO file. Let me put it right in the center here. You have to remember where you keep it, and as you organize your ISO files, remember that if you're in Windows Explorer especially and you select it, you will have extra tools that are called disk image tools, because it knows what to do with an ISO file. You can mount it as if it were a DVD. You can burn it to an actual physical DVD. Mounting it is what we're going to be doing in VMware, where we want the VM to have it mounted to its DVD. We don't want to mount it here to the host. And what I mean is that you can actually open this and browse around. I saw several people have trouble with the install lab just simply because they were opening this file, which, if you notice on the left side, you get an extra drive mapped. You get an extra letter, it looks like a DVD drive, and it says Ubuntu. So you can browse this, but you don't need to. Your VM doesn't need to do this. Your VM will be doing it on its own. You don't need to do this in Windows Explorer here. Simply go to where you organize your files, which for me is software library. Okay, this drive is actually still mounted. We should eject it. Eject. That disconnects the drive, and it stops making a connection to the files themselves. The files are not open or locked. Alright, so if you accidentally double-clicked into the ISO file, make sure you right-click on whatever letter that was mapped for you and disconnect that. Alright, back to file location. It's important to have this already downloaded and know where you have saved it. Again, my file structure is simply to make a software library and keep all the files handy, so I know which operating system or piece of software this is. Just a note for this class and this recording, I'm using 20-4, but whatever version comes out for the next term, the summer term may have something different. They get updated fairly regularly, and you'll have to just pay close attention. Alright, let's get the documents I need. First we're going to create, let me make the software a little smaller so you can see. I want to be on the configuring portion. I want you to see this and make sure this is in the screen. We're going to create a new VM. We're going to keep some of the defaults, but not all of them. We're going to create it. It will know what version by the ISO file we choose. So right here, if it says install from a file, we browse to the file, software library, and it will know already that which version of Ubuntu this is and that it's 64-bit. We don't have to select any of that. Okay, users, now that we're ready to create our Linux account, we have to remember Linux rules. I tried to make one that had regular words in it in uppercase. That doesn't fly in Linux, so I have to use lowercase for the user. That was my mistake, is being a Windows user too much, and I'll admit Linux in general is a weakness of mine, but I love it. The more I use it, the more I like it, and frankly it's something we should all be using more often. Okay, VM name. Ubuntu Spring 21. The location, be very careful with this, especially Windows users. The default location is most often going to be a OneDrive, because most of the laptops we buy don't give us as much local storage, and assume we want all our files backed up to the cloud. Therefore, the default location, which would normally be in the My Documents or Documents folder, and then create a folder called for virtual machines, by default is going to get redirected to the cloud, which is not useful at all for VMware or any hypervisor. So we're going to change this, and this is why I struggle to convince students to create a folder just for virtual machines and make one. Make new folder every time you make a new VM, and I'm going to call it Ubuntu Spring 21. And that's where I want it to go. Spring 21 Ubuntu. Number of processors. Most of this we're going to be keeping the defaults for everything except for RAM. It defaults to 4 gig. If your machine has less than this and you're forced to try less, you may encounter problems later. So make sure the memory gets bumped up from 2 gig to 4 gig depending on what your computer is configured to give a default machine. It can function with less. It won't work as well for our lab. We're going to keep everything. Make sure it's 20 and split. The only thing we should need to customize is bumping up the memory from 2 to 4, and that's it. That's all you need. There really aren't too many tricks to it other than avoiding creating these VMs on a OneDrive, knowing where your ISO file is, and just knowing to keep your usernames all lowercase, like I did. And it should just roll from here. I'm going to keep the video rolling on this so that you can see just what's going on. At this point, I'm going to remove the left side library. It's a navigation bar, so that more of the screen can be used by the VM. Let's see if I can just stretch this a little bigger. And we will let it install. It should have access to the internet via my NIC, and lo and behold, it's working on it. Patience. It will show you some different screens and say welcome, and what you really want to look for is the progress bar at the bottom. Copying files. We have to wait till it finishes installing and reboots. I know, it's boring watching this copy, but part of this demo lab is to show you in real time how long it will take. So I apologize for the silence, but if I cut this out, you wouldn't know if it took 3 minutes or 30. It should never take 30. Not even Windows. Remember that in early April, we are closed for holiday on Friday, I want to say the 3rd, lost track of it already, and Thursday campus are sort of open. It's a professional development day, so there are no classes, and faculty are usually booked solid with meetings from at least 9 to 3, and sometimes after. So if you're trying to reach any faculty member on Thursday, that would be 2 days, you won't get them. If they're replying, they're skipping out on whatever class they're trying to trying to learn. Things like VidGrid and the new version of Blackboard and things like that. Yeah. Retrieving file 25 of 25, which means we should be done, but then it's got, oh, it's counting backwards. All right, 49. It made the user, that's great. So the tough part is done. Language packs. It's got lots of different languages. Most operating systems let you switch languages on the fly very quickly. Sorry about the boring install time. Is that a civet? What is that? Some sort of funky fox. Yes, we do get a browser and a mail client built into the package that we're downloading. This version of Ubuntu comes with quite a few things you need to do your job, and things that can be added are easy to get, like LibreOffice, which you already have experience installing. And then you can pretty much do schoolwork. There are a couple of things you won't be able to do. The testing software, the Respondus, there is no Linux version of it. So if you want to use Ubuntu full-time, or you want your next laptop, next computer to be a Linux machine, you're going to have trouble with the testing. You would have to be, most classes require proctored exams, not necessarily quizzes. So if you are in a fully online section, your choices are to borrow a machine that has Windows or Mac, that's a Windows or Mac, to use while taking the exam, or go into the testing center. Drive into a testing center on each campus. Those are the options. And frankly, before we had Respondus, there was no option to take it at home. So this is an improved situation. It also makes things convenient for you as the test taker to take it at the time of day that you're better off answering questions. Okay, that's typical for Linux users, that software is written for Windows and Mac, and then they think about Linux. So Linux users will often create one that's sort of compatible, mostly compatible. It should be a default option. The trouble is there is no default Linux per se, so you can have a lot of different components that may or may not work with the software, which makes writing software more difficult. Because first thing we'll say are, well, what are the requirements and what are the restrictions, and you'd have to start with an operating system. Okay, even I'm getting bored. It's been about 5 minutes. One second. I'll make sure there are notations in the lab when the install is running so that you can jump ahead. The fact that I have some fairly large software open right now, like Camtasia, just slowing things down a bit. The two biggest things right now are Camtasia and VMware. Oh well. Alright, at first glance you should see power button not on the side where Windows has it. Windows has it down here. You're looking for it up here in the upper right. It is not 1043. We'll fix that. It's going. You can tell right there it's still going. I'm closing my OneDrive. Great, now it reboots. Okay. So it since downloaded and installed most of the files it needs, but it may need to extract some things, so it won't be totally finished for another 3-4 minutes. There, it looked black when I had the highlight. When I clicked on it, it had my user. So we are back up and running. Ah, it's working. There, okay, now we are back on with the lab. We have a working VM. The DVD drives have disconnected themselves, which is good. We have icons, although we may not know what they do. Welcome, power, and of course it's going to want to hook us up with all our accounts. We're hitting skip, next, 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 next. Next. No. Next. We get to the ready to go. We see all our options. We still may not know what they do. And we hit done. This is your first snip. Your first snip will be to have your VMware, which I've streamlined by just turning off the library. So that's not visible. And your first snip has to be just a little bit outside. Does not have to be full monitor, just a little bit outside. And all you're showing is that you have Ubuntu installed. That's it. Snip 1. So you're halfway done with the lab. Minimize that. Alright. We remind me later about the update. You will need to install this eventually. Just don't do it right this second. And we're going to open Firefox to make sure we can surf. Of course, we had connectivity, but that's okay. And we're going to go to our favorite. It said go to your favorite website. Well, I'm a news junkie, so I'm going to get some news. And I used to live in DC, so okay. And we're going to go look at, let's see, sports. Tech. Hey, that's it. We want the tech section. Ooh, the delay is crazy. Tech. Future of transportation. Look at cool cars or trains. All right, so we have a website. It's open, it's running, it's live, and that is the next snip. New snip. Again, just a little bit outside of VMware. I don't need to see much, just that it's on your host. You copy that snip. That's it. So to close your browser, it's going to warn you just like it would in other browsers, and you power off. Your Bluetooth is on. We're going to log out, power off. You still have options, power off. That's it. That is the first lab. That is your install lab, and it's done. Congratulations.